Mic check. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rajesh Govindaraj. So I'll be covering this environment and disaster management part of 2021 UPSC Mains General Studies Paper 3. So I hope all of you have been watching our series of these videos. I had even covered Paper 1 Geography. A few of the things are there related to in the context of disaster management. I hope all of you have watched that. So I'll bring that context how there is a change of question from paper 1 to paper 3, even though the topic has been same. So overall paper 3 environment and disaster management part, I'll be talking about this environment and disaster management part. So in this part overall observation is that there is an increased number of questions from the current affairs directly, and few of the questions are predictable, easy, and a few of the questions were difficult. Overall it has been a mix of both easy and difficult questions. Okay, so let's start with the analysis. First I'll talk about the analysis part, then I'll talk about the answers, approach and answer to these questions. So overall the pattern remains the same as I had discussed in the geography part. The first things first, the syllabus of environment and disaster management. In paper 3 you can see that general studies paper 3, the heading itself says that it's about technology, economic development, biodiversity, environment, security and disaster management. So these are the topics: biodiversity and environment and disaster management. Okay, and the syllabus clearly says that environmental part, it's about conservation, environmental pollution, degradation and environmental impact assessment. So this is environment part, and disaster part you can see disaster and disaster management. Very simple and easy, not much elaboration is given actually. So overall this is what is environment and disaster management part. If we have to take the overall weightage of this section in paper 3 general studies out of 250 marks in the last 9 years when the syllabus has changed, that is since 2013. So initially there were the questions were limited to around 40 to 50 marks. Okay, initially it was around 40 to 50 marks. So in the last 4 years the weightage has increased, and you can see in 2018 there was a total of 85 marks from together both environment and disaster management. So then around 50, 65, and this year it has been observed that the total number of questions directly from environment and disaster management is 60. Okay, there is also one more question related to the blue LED. So we can say overall it is also a question related to both science and technology as well as environment, because it talks about the impact of this LED. So we can consider the discussion from both environment as well as science and technology. So for our ease of understanding, so we have put it for our sake, for the discussion sake, we have put it in science and technology section, which will be discussed separately. Okay, so if we include that, the overall weightage becomes 75. If you remove this the question on LED, the overall weightage remains around 60 marks. 60 marks out of 250. So that includes both environment as well as disaster management. The thing is like many of the students don't prepare very specifically for this section. They think that इसमें ज़्यादा क्वेश्चन नहीं आता है तो मैनेज हो जाएगा, जो भी जियोग्राफी में पढ़ा है या जो भी प्रीलिम्स के लिए पढ़ा है उसको रखे हम मैनेज कर लेंगे, ऐसे सोचते हैं. बट पर्टिकुलरली ये जो हमारा डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट सेक्शन है, so definitely you can expect 1 or 2 questions every year. You have seen that, so for sure there will be 1 or 2 questions, and you have to write very specific answers over there. Okay, it is very important that you have to write very specific answers. And even environment questions also, the questions, the current year's questions, if you see, you can clearly see that they are totally based on current affairs. You have to know specifically. ऐसे generally vague answers लिख दिया तो marks नहीं मिलेगा. So this is a particular section. I would say overall we can say that this a section which cannot be ignored as such, and you need to prepare very specifically to answer this. So overall weightage of 60 marks, and these are the 5 questions which we have put it under environment and disaster management. So there are 3 questions from environment. So one question directly on this green grid initiative. Okay, there is this green grid initiative, इसके ऊपर direct question था. And second question on this WHO's global air quality guidelines. And third environment questions on जो हमारा 26th सेशन, दैट इज COP 26 का जो सेशन हुआ था उसके ऊपर भी डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन. 3 क्वेश्चंस ऑन एनवायरनमेंट, 2 क्वेश्चंस ऑन डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट, 1 क्वेश्चन रिलेटेड टू earthquake, another question related to landslide. And it is surprising to see that there is again landslide question again in paper 3. So even though there was a question on landslide in paper 1, okay, this is not something new which we are observing. We've observed that the questions related to disaster usually repeat, and even in 2016 there was a question on urban floods. उस साल urban floods news में था, बहुत सारा cities में urban floods हुआ था. So there was a question on urban floods both in paper 1 as well as in paper 3. तब repeat हुआ था 2016 में. In the same way this year UPSC has repeated the question on landslide both from paper 1 as well as in paper 3. Okay, this is something on the disaster management, and these 3 are from environment. So overall weightage is 60 marks. You can see 5 questions. And if we divide the overall section of environment into overall environment and disaster management into different sections, the major sections जहाँ पर questions आया है, like for example the section on pollution and degradation, which includes the pollution of air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, and any kind of pollution and degradation of the environment. That is first section. And second section is about energy, different forms of energy, conventional and non-conventional energy, renewable source of energy. इसके ऊपर usually there would be 1 question, you can see. And there is a third section specifically on climate change, 4th section on sustainable development, 5th section on conservation of wildlife, biodiversity, all that thing. Then environmental impact assessment, ये word clearly mentioned है syllabus में. Many of the students miss this, and specifically mentioned, you can clearly see. Let me just show it. Can you see environmental impact assessment specifically दिया है, and बहुत छोटा topic है तो prepare करके रखना बहुत important है. And disaster management of course separately mentioned. So these are the different sections in this overall area of environment and disaster management, and in this the maximum weightage you can see comes to our disaster management, where I have specifically told that 1 or 2 questions would be there, and this year 2 questions. And other than disaster management, overall 25% of the questions still asked, मतलब in the last 9 years जो जितना भी questions आया है, in that 25% of the questions are from pollution and degradation. Okay, you can see 25%, and 20% of the questions are from energy. Okay, energy के ऊपर we always expect, even those our student who had attended my classes in mains 365 as well as mains advanced batch, I had specifically told them हमें definitely expect कर सकते हैं 1 question on energy, 1 question on pollution. Disaster management तो है ही, at least 1 or 2 questions. Okay, and this is what happened this year. In addition to that, there was a question on climate change also. Okay, this was the most predictable section. Pollution में usually एक रहता है, energy में ये usually एक रहता है, and this time we had this COP 26 which was a very important one, तो इसलिए इसके ऊपर भी question आ गया. And disaster management 2 questions. Overall this year, so 1 question from pollution, 1 question from energy, है ना, grid वाला. So then 1 question from COP 26 and 2 questions from disaster management. And overall trend we can say it was on the predictable lines. The sections were there, it was not something like unpredictable type. Okay, the topics were also predictable type, but one question, एक question थोड़ा बहुत ऐसे unpredictable type आ गया. We'll discuss about that. So this is about the sectional weightage, and coming to the nature of question. Yes, let's discuss the nature of question. You can clearly see that the 3 questions from environment, they are totally from current affairs. Okay, if you go back to the previous papers and see, the earlier trend has been that there would be a mix of both current affairs and static part. Okay, static part environment में ऐसे नहीं होता है कि they will ask things from the static environment, ecosystem, food chain. इसके ऊपर तो क्वेश्चन आया नहीं है अभी तक. Static part में क्वेश्चन नहीं आएगा. But the thing is, it is not totally current affairs also. Okay, there were few questions which were current affairs related, but this year all the 3 questions were directly from current affairs. मतलब you don't need to know any other background, environment का कोई static background का ज़रूरी नहीं है. You just have to read them directly from current affairs. अगर पढ़ा है तब भी लिख पाओगे. Only if at all you had read this specifically, then only you will be able to write. Whether it is a question on the green grid, or it is a question on the outcome of COP26, or it is a question related to the WHO guidelines, you need to write very, very specifically. This is one change which we can observe. Okay, change from the previous. थोड़ा बहुत ऐसा environment का, if you observe the previous questions, you can see there would be at least little bit space for writing from our own, जो हमारे तरफ से जो लिखने का होता है ना, so by using the knowledge, general awareness use करके लिखने का जो scope था, वो इस बार खत्म हो गया है. The questions were very, very specific and totally from current affairs. You don't need any kind of static background here. Okay, that is regarding environment. There are no static questions at all, totally current affairs, 100% current affairs we can say. However, in the case of disaster management, you can clearly see that disaster management questions have been scoring and they were on the expected trends only. Okay, there was one question on the earthquake के ऊपर एक बार question आ गया है. Landslide के ऊपर last year ही question आ गया था. And other than this year itself, there was a question on paper 1, and this was one of the expected. Landslide तो होना ही, इसके ऊपर question आना ही चाहिए था. So overall, disaster management का जो question है, unlike the environment questions which are totally current affairs based, disaster management questions are little bit static in nature. Okay, little bit static in nature and little bit like you have a scope of writing based on your general awareness. You don't have to know a specific program, specific scheme के बारे में ज़रूरी नहीं था इसके ऊपर. ठीक है, this is about the nature of questions. Regarding the sources, I'll talk about it in the end. Okay, end में बात करेंगे whether the traditional sources are sufficient और कुछ चाहिए इसके ऊपर. तो you will see that once you get to know about the questions in more detail. Now let's talk about the questions. So particularly ये जो हमारा students है who are going to attempt in 2022 mains, our classroom students and all other students who is watching this session. So please try to observe this, the nature of questions very closely and also the type of answer it is expected out of you and overall structure which is required in this in these answers. Okay, तो यहाँ पर आपका बहुत useful रहेगा so that you can direct your preparation in that particular direction. ठीक है, and those of course those who have written mains this year and for them also you can just to verify, just to check how exactly was your performance, so this thing will be very useful. Chalo, question number 6. Let's talk about 3 environment questions first, then we'll take up the disaster management questions too later. Question number 6, explain the purpose of Green Grid initiative launched at World Leaders Summit of the COP26 UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow in November 2021. when was this idea first floated in International Solar Alliance? The first thing which you can observe about this question, it is totally current affairs based, है ना, totally इसके ऊपर specifically आपको पता होना चाहिए whether you know about this initiative or not. If you know about this, you can directly write. If you don't know about it, यहाँ पर guess मारने का कोई भी scope नहीं है. And luckily this has been covered in mains 365. मैंने ही cover किया था. I hope any of you whoever had attended would know about this. है ना, तो one of the most predictable question, the topic which we had expected. So, and there was one question in 2013. I tried to take out a similar question which was asked in UPSC. एक similar question था. This was also about the green energy, green grid type ही, but it was at the national level. It was asked in 2013. The question was, write a note on India's green energy corridor to alleviate the problem of conventional energy. 2013 में आया था about the green energy corridor. This was a question. This was a topic in the national level. Okay, it was an initiative at the national level. Okay, not a same topic. Of course, this is current related topic, so repeat नहीं होगा यहाँ पर. But I'm trying to bring some parallel with respect to the previous year. And मैंने पहले ही बोला था, even for our classroom students, that we had predicted one question on energy. Energy topic के ऊपर usually एक question रहता है, and this was the question this year. And this was the news. Those who were in current affairs का जो भी टच में था, जो भी whoever in regularly followed the current affairs, they could have clearly got this topic. Okay, ये बहुत recent था. It was when the COP26 was going on in November. So November का ही news था, and the question came up in January. And this is the overall structure. It is a 10 marker. You don't have much scope to elaborate too much about this. You can start the answer with very briefly what is green grid initiative. Very briefly you can talk about this and directly come to the purpose of this initiative. Okay, can you see? Explain the purpose of green grid initiative. Directly come to the purpose. उसका purpose क्या है, इसलिए हम कर रहे हैं. So overall 3-4 points, whatever the purpose is there. And the second part, when was this idea first floated in ISA? See, the second part talks about when was this floated. इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि we'll just write the year and stop it over there. You need to give some background. How exactly it started and how exactly it led to this green grid initiative. जो अभी initiative है, तो कब शुरू हुआ था, कब कहाँ पर अभी it has ended up and how it has been continuing. So overall background यहाँ पर देना है, and a brief conclusion would also be good here in this context, whether we will be able to achieve this or not, whether how exactly it is going to be useful. So इसके ऊपर very brief line would be sufficient. ठीक है, introduction, the purpose, and then a brief background, that is when exactly it started and how exactly it proceeded, and a brief conclusion would be sufficient here. Now, so what exactly is this green grid initiative? Okay, green grid initiative is basically an initiative started by India. Okay, it was started by India but announced finally by India and UK together. It was a joint initiative announced by India and UK together at the COP26 summit which happened in Glasgow in November 2021. Okay, this was a joint initiative announced by India and UK together, and it was joined by many other countries also. And this is officially called as Green Grid Initiative, GGI, Green Grid Initiative, and One Sun, One World, One Grid. One Sun, One World, One Grid. So basically One Sun, One World, One Grid was the initiative of India and Green Grid Initiative was part of UK. ये UK का पार्ट है, ये इंडिया का पार्ट था, दोनों were of similar objective, similar initiative था, so दोनों मिला के इसको अनाउंस किया है. ठीक है, this was announced recently. इतना इंट्रोडक्शन काफ़ी है. So coming to the purpose, what is the purpose of this initiative? So basically the vision of this initiative is that the sun never sets. है ना, because as we can clearly see that the sun always shines over one part of the earth when there is a night on another part. So basically it talks about the utility of solar energy, the potential of solar energy, and if you are able to harness the solar energy continuously using a connected grid all across the world, it provides for a network which can be used to harness this solar energy to a maximum extent. And provide this solar energy in a continuous manner. Okay, that is the overall purpose of this green grid initiative. So majorly concentrated about solar energy, but it is not limited to only solar energy. Okay, it includes all other renewable sources like wind, water, etc. So the major aim is to provide for that particular grid with connectivity at the world level. Okay, there should be interconnected global power grid with the transmission infrastructure. ठीक है, पर्पस में आप लिख सकते हो, you can talk about the vision which I told you about one sun never sets, वो with that idea they have started, and a global power grid, okay, global grid with the infrastructure for transmission infrastructure होना चाहिए, where we can transfer the energy from one part of the world to another, जहाँ पर surplus है, to deficient region हम easily transport कर सके. And along with the sun, it also includes solar, wind, water components also, and overall idea is to reduce the reliance on coal, which is considered to be one of the most polluting, and in that aspect, in order to provide for a clean technology, and also it is also an attempt to provide for affordable low carbon technology. Okay, it is also an initiative under the various affordable low carbon technology ke andar, so which is trying to ensure at least 70% of the global economy runs using this affordable low carbon technology, and overall aim is to achieve 2600 gigawatts of connectivity, 2600 gigawatt of connectivity by 2050. Okay, this is the overall target. Matlab this overall solar grid should have this much of capacity to transfer from one part of the world to another part of the world. Overall capacity should be 2600 gigawatts of interconnection by 2050. Okay, these are the various purposes. Now, what is the background? Background क्या था? So background तो actually इस question में ही दे दिया है. कब फर्स्ट फ्लोट हुआ था? It was first floated by India in the first meeting of ISA. It was first floated by the first Assembly of International Solar Alliance by Indian Prime Minister in 2018. Okay, in the first International Assembly of International Solar Alliance in 2018, our Honorable Prime Minister announced this in the name of One Sun, One World, One Grid. Okay, they announced this in the name of One Sun, One World, One Grid. So after it was announced in 2018, a steering committee was established. Steering committee was established in 2018 itself to look into the implementation mechanism and to look into the technicalities of it, to study the project under the implementation aspects, जो implementation करने के लिए क्या क्या चाहिए, तो overall technical study के लिए they had established a steering committee, and finally it was in May 2021 UK joined this. Okay, in May 2021 UK was actually having this green grid initiative. So it said, let's launch this together with the partnership of India and UK. So that is how this global green grid, One Sun, One World, One Grid, okay, initiative was launched, and that was finally launched. May में UK announce कर दिया था, and that was finally launched in November 2021, and now it is not only India and UK, it has become a multilateral project where various governments and various international organizations have joined it. Okay? This is the overall background. So कब शुरू हुआ था? 2018 में इंडिया अनाउंस किया था, then steering committee was established, then in May 2021 UK announced that let's do it in a partnership, and that is the time when they announced it together. So in November 2021 it was formally announced in Glasgow climate summit, and that is when all the other countries also joined, many of the other countries also joined, and many other international organizations also have joined this. And a brief conclusion would be sufficient here. So you can talk about the importance of this global green grid in the context of India's commitment. Not only India, many of the other countries also have announced their commitments in Glasgow COP26 that they are aiming to achieve net zero, है ना, by 2050 2070 जो भी announcement हुआ है. In that context, this is going to be a very very important initiative which helps in reducing the global emissions of greenhouse gases. Okay, ये ऐसे एक brief conclusion would be sufficient here. And using this, definitely India is going to get a good technological financial support which will help India in achieving its own target also. So that was question number 6. Question number 7. Yes, let's read the question first. Describe the key components of revised global air quality guidelines recently released by WHO. How are these different from its last update in 2005? What changes in India's national clean air program are required to achieve these revised standards? ठीक है, I'll come to the question. Before that, let me show you this the previous question जो similar question आया था 2020 में ही आया था. So it was a direct question on the key features of National Clean Air Program initiated by the Government of India. Okay, उसी का ही बात हुआ है. Can you see National Clean Air Program? But the tricky part, the most tricky part here is nobody expected that the UPSC would ask the specific guidelines itself. अभी तक इतना डिटेल में कोई भी क्वेश्चन नहीं आया. अभी तक इतना डिटेल में कोई भी क्वेश्चन नहीं आया. You can go to the previous papers from 2013 to 2020, questions on pollution, air pollution, जो भी क्वेश्चन आया है, it is little bit, there was little bit scope. Okay, थोड़ा सा जनरल या little bit overall broader idea रख के लिख सकता था. But here the question is very very specific where you have to remember the clear cut guidelines, overall target set by WHO. This makes the question very tough here. Okay, so हमने भी ये टॉपिक प्रेडिक्ट किया था, but even we did not expect that the UPSC would ask in such detailed manner there where you have to specifically talk about the guidelines. What are the guidelines and how exactly it has changed from 2005 and how exactly it is different from NCAP. Okay, this makes this question very very difficult. Okay, but overall थोड़ा बहुत आइडिया है, NCAP के ऊपर थोड़ा सा आइडिया है, and what are the मेजर पोल्यूटेंट जिसके ऊपर थोड़ा आइडिया है, तो यू कैन राइट ए जनरल आंसर. सो ओवरऑल मैनेज कर सकते हैं, बट इट इज़ वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू स्कोर ए वेरी गुड मार्क्स हियर. आई एम श्योर हूएवर हैज रिटन दिस दे आर आल्सो ऑफ द सेम ओपिनियन. तो इस क्वेश्चन में मेनी ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स वुड नॉट हैव गॉट द एग्जैक्ट आंसर हियर. ओके, सो दिस इज द डिफिकल्ट, वन ऑफ द मोस्ट डिफिकल्ट इन ऑन दिस एयर पोल्यूशन का जो एस्पेक्ट है. बट वेदर द टॉपिक वॉज एक्सपेक्टेड और नॉट, डेफिनेटली इट वॉज एक्सपेक्टेड बिकॉज एयर पोल्यूशन इशू हैज बीन देयर दिल्ली में, सराउंडिंग रीजन में, नॉट ओनली इन दिल्ली, इवन इन मेनी ऑफ द सिटीज ऑफ इंडिया, एंड दिस हैज़ बीन ए कॉन्स्टेंट न्यूज़. एंड बहुत सारे रिपोर्ट्स आए हैं विच टॉक्स अबाउट द इशू ऑफ एयर क्वालिटी, एयर पोल्यूशन एंड द डेथ्स विच आर हैपनिंग बिकॉज ऑफ दैट, द हेल्थ इश्यूज, ऑल ऑफ दिस हैज़ बीन कॉन्स्टेंटली इन न्यूज़. बट द थिंग इज वी डू नॉट एक्सपेक्ट दैट इट इज गोइंग टू गो इन दिस डिटेल. ठीक है, ये तो न्यूज़ में ही था. यू कैन क्लियरली सी most of the newspapers, most of the magazines had covered this. And this was a news of September 2021. Okay, September 2021 का ही न्यूज़ है. Now, what should be the overall structure for this answer? In the introduction, please tell what are these global air quality guidelines. ये क्या होता है? Very briefly you can talk. And the first part, describe the key points of the revised guidelines. Okay, what are the key points? That is the second part. And the third part is, how are these different from its last update in 2005? This is the third part. And the fourth part is, what changes in India's NCAP are required to achieve these revised standards? What are the changes? And a brief conclusion. As you can see, there are many parts. अब briefly थोड़ा सा भी लिख दिया तो काफ़ी है. Even if you write very briefly about this, that would be sufficient here. Now, in the introduction, you can write that overall, what are these guidelines? These are the guidelines set of air quality levels released by WHO, which prescribes the basic minimum levels जितना हो, जिससे ज़्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए in order to ensure a healthy population, in order to protect the population of the world overall, हर जगह में जो होना चाहिए. It was last released in 2005, and after that, after a very long period of time, it has updated recently. Okay, so this is the brief introduction. Now coming to the points, what exactly are the key points of this revised guidelines? Okay, first of all, these guidelines announces a maximum limit for air pollutants. Okay, it announces maximum limit for air pollutants, जितना maximum होना चाहिए. And if any city crosses that particular maximum level, it is said to be that it is not very healthy, it is not very good for the health of people who are living over there. Okay, basically it's a kind of global standards. It gives out the global standards जो maximum level होना चाहिए. ठीक है, that is the first point. Overall, that is the thing. And second thing is, along with that, it also gives a specific targets. Okay, so and also like the maximum levels seasonally की कितना हो सकता है, क्योंकि there are certain seasons, particular seasons में ज़्यादा हो जाते हैं, कुछ season में कम हो जाते हैं. So considering that variation, it also gives the seasonally maximum कितना हो सकता है, and overall 24 hours में कितना maximum level हो सकता है, and annually कितना maximum level हो सकता है. Okay, the second point is it prescribes the maximum limit based on the season, based on 24 hours duration, based on the annual duration. ठीक है, so as you can see, this is how it prescribes the guidelines. And the third point, you can see that it covers a total of 6 major air pollutants, among them PM 2.5, PM 10, ozone, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide and carbon monoxide. Okay, these are the 6 major pollutants which are considered by WHO under its guidelines. Okay, it gives the guidelines for these 6 air pollutants, and for them it gives under 2 different headings: annually कितना average होना चाहिए, and at a 24-hour average में 24-hour time period में कितना average होना चाहिए. ठीक है, for all of this. And ozone के लिए it gives 8-hour average, and for sulfur dioxide and carbon monoxide again it's only 24 hours of average. And 2005 का standards के comparison में you can see it has reduced for most of the air pollutants. It has reduced, okay, the level. मतलब it has made these 2021 standards little bit more stringent. Okay, little bit, it has made it little bit more stringent. You can see the maximum level of PM 2.5 annually at 2005 standards was 10. उसको अभी कर दिया 5. मतलब annual average should not exceed the maximum limit of 5 micrograms per meter cube. Okay, पहले 10 था, उसको 5 कर दिया. And 24-hour average था, earlier it was 25, now it is 15. मतलब any city which exceeds this will be said, it is said to be highly polluted. Okay, this is for PM 2.5, this is for PM 10, ozone, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide. Most of the targets have been reduced. मतलब it has made the overall levels little bit more stringent. Fine. And few other things along with all of this, it also gives a qualitative statements on good practices in order to manage the particulate matter. Okay, certain practices which should be followed by the countries to manage the particulate matter, वो भी prescribe करता है इसके साथ. वो क्या क्या है इतना डिटेल में जानने की जरूरत नहीं है. First of all, इतना याद करना ही मुश्किल है, I know that. So but this is, I told you, this is one of the very rare times where UPSC asks this much in detail. Okay, along with all of this, it also prescribes certain set of standards, certain set of practices which is considered, which should be followed by the countries in order to manage the particulate matter. This is the second part. Okay, second part, key parts. Okay. Third part, how exactly they are different from the last update. Compared to the last update, one important observation you can clearly make, that it has made the levels little bit more stringent. Okay, it has made it little bit more stringent, and that is not arbitrarily ऐसे कुछ किया नहीं है. It has conducted a scientific studies, and based on the scientific studies, it has accepted that air pollution can happen, that is impact on health can happen even at the lower levels. And based on these newly announced levels, most of the cities in India are highly polluted. Okay? So most of the cities in India are highly polluted. So new methods have been announced. New methods have been using new different methods, scientific methods. The WHO has announced the different standards. Ye first thing, and second thing, it has made it a little bit more stringent. And third thing, you can observe that it has given certain peak season levels for ozone, which was not there. Okay, पहले peak season level नहीं था, अभी peak season level announce किया है, and 24-hour levels नहीं था nitrogen dioxide में, now it has been announced, and for carbon monoxide also 24 hours levels नहीं था, it has been announced. Okay, there are few changes in this levels of air pollutants which has been earlier, which was not prescribed, now it has been prescribed. And third thing, even जो मैंने बताया था, new practices which it has suggested to manage the particulate matter, वो भी पहले नहीं था, now it has suggested. These are few of the changes which has been announced as compared to the 2005 levels. 2005 guidelines. So now national clean air program, उसका जो हमारा जो program है, उससे ये जो नया guidelines है, how exactly they are different. First of all, what is this National Clean Air Program? National Clean Air Program, it is a program to control majorly the particulate matter, majorly targeting the particulate matter, which aims to reduce 20 to 30% of particulate matter in Indian cities. Okay, it covers a total of 122 cities. Okay, it covers a total of 122 cities by 2024. It has been started from 2017. Okay, 2017 level का हिसाब से, considering at a base level, it is trying to reduce 20 to 30% of particulate matter in a total of 122 cities. Now, how exactly they selected these 122 cities? These are the cities which did not fulfill the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. Okay, those cities which did not fulfill the National Ambient Air Quality Standards between 2011 to 2015. Okay, in this 5 years, जो जिनका National Ambient Air Quality Standards बहुत poor था, they targeted these 122 cities, and now they are targeting to reduce the particulate matter by 20 to 30% by 2024. This was the overall program of National Ambient Air Quality, National Clean Air Program. And as per this program, they target certain specific levels of air pollutants. Okay, in that, one of the most dangerous one, PM 2.5. Okay, PM 2.5 ka hi, like if you select the recommendations given under National Air Quality Program, National Air Quality Programs targets a 24-hour average of 60 micrograms per meter cube. This is the target under National Air Quality Program, and as per the new World WHO guidelines, it should be 15. That means हमारा जो national target है, that is nearly 4 times the world average, world guidelines. जो WHO guidelines के हिसाब से जो minimum maximum होना चाहिए, उससे 4 times ज़्यादा है हमारा present target. Present target ही उससे ज़्यादा है. You can imagine, मतलब जो actual condition है वो, this is much more. WHO says 15 होना चाहिए, हमारा जो नेशनल एयर क्वालिटी प्रोग्राम, नेशनल क्लीन एयर प्रोग्राम टारगेट्स 60, एंड जो एनुअल एवरेज है करेंटली इट इज बेसिकली सेइंग 5, एंड जो नेशनल क्लीन एयर प्रोग्राम टारगेट्स इट टू बी 40, which is nearly 8 times. So this clearly shows that our targets under National Clean Air Program to be achieved by 2024, वो भी पता नहीं है वो अचीव करेंगे या नहीं, वो target, that target itself is very very high, है ना, and it will take a long period of time before we can come down to WHO level. And in the conclusion, you can write about the issue of rising air pollution. Recent issue, recently Delhi में ही बहुत ज़्यादा issue हुआ था, and surrounding northern plains they face this air quality issues in this, and rising number of health issues which has been observed due to this air pollution. So you can talk about that, and the necessity of matching this national clean air program का जो targets है, it is very important that we need to match that with the WHO guidelines. I already told you this question is little bit specific, थोड़ा बहुत current related है, but थोड़ा बहुत directly fact based है, so that makes the question difficult to score. The third question of environment, describe the major outcomes of 26th COP2 UNFCCC. What are the commitments made by India in this conference? This is one of the most easiest question. जैसे WHO का guidelines जितना tough था, उससे ज़्यादा यहाँ पर compensate हो जाएगा. क्योंकि this year our honorable Prime Minister himself personally visited, and he made a commitment which has been highlighted all over the world. एंड इंडिया का भी रेफरेंस, मतलब हमारे जो प्रीवियस कमिटमेंट के हिसाब से दिस इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट एम्बिशियस वंस. इन दैट कंटेक्स्ट दिस हैज बीन वन ऑफ द मोस्ट एक्सपेक्टेड, सो दैट मेक्स द क्वेश्चन वेरी वेरी इजी. एंड ऑफ कोर्स दिस इज ऑल्सो ए टोटली करंट अफेयर्स बेस्ड, एंड यू नीड टू नो द स्पेसिफिक details of this overall outcome and overall commitments, then only you will be able to write. ऐसे generally लिखा तो marks नहीं मिलेगा यहाँ पर. And even this has been covered in detail in Mains 365, मैंने ही cover किया था, so I hope you guys remember that. So this is one of the most expected and easy question, makes this very scoring. So overall structure 15 मार्क है, काफ़ी स्कोप रहेगा यहाँ पर एलोबरेट करके लिखने के लिए. यू कैन स्टार्ट विद अ ब्रीफ इंट्रोडक्शन अबाउट COP26 टू UNFCCC. दिस इज द 26th conference of parties to UNFCCC, where nearly 197 countries met in Glasgow in Scotland, and this was a summit which was supposed to have happened last year, that was postponed due to the pandemic, and finally it happened between 31st October to 13 November 2021. Okay, with a brief introduction, this much would be sufficient. What are the major outcomes of this? Okay, major outcomes, there are many outcomes, so it will be good if you can briefly mention all of them. Okay, so it is always suggested that आप जितना ज़्यादा multiple different points लिखते हैं उतना अच्छा है, rather than elaborating only few points. So what are the major outcomes? Major outcomes of this COP26. So in this COP26, majorly the countries targeted the emissions, the overall emissions, that is emissions reduction targets as per Paris agreements, which is called as INDC, intended nationally determined contributions. Okay, these INDCs as declared by the countries, it is said that they are not at all sufficient to limit the overall global warming to 1.5 degree, not even 1.5 degree, 2 degree भी limit नहीं हो पाएगा. As per the recent IPCC report, it is said that even if every country fulfills their INDC, the overall global warming will be limited to 2.4 degrees Celsius. This was highlighted this in COP26, and it asked all the countries to increase their INDCs, okay, to enhance their commitments further in order to achieve the overall target of 1.5 degrees Celsius of global warming. It is expected that the next year, okay, when we meet in Egypt, okay, Egypt में जब COP27 होगा, all the countries were expected to increase their commitments. This was first outcome where it is said that सबको increase करना है, ऐसा unilaterally they have made a statement. And second one, in the context of fossil fuels. In the context of fossil fuels, particularly in the context of coal, there was an attempt by the global majors to reduce the use of coal, to disincentivize the use of coal. So basically they wanted to use the word phase out the use of coal. Okay, they wanted to use the word phase out the use of coal because coal is considered to be very polluting, but this met with a stiff opposition from India and China, which are the major consumers of coal. So basically their entire energy demands are fulfilled by coal, majority of the energy demands are fulfilled by coal, so इसलिए they strongly oppose this, and finally they removed the word phase out and they replaced it with the phase down. Okay, phase out नहीं करेंगे but phase down करेंगे, मतलब overall consumption of coal will be reduced over a period of time. Okay, so they decided, this is the first ever decision in the entire COP, जो भी earlier COPs हुआ था, in that the first ever decision was taken to phase down coal. Okay, to phase down coal. Let me just write this. Phase down coal. Okay. So first was INDCs को increase करना है. Second, to phase down coal consumption. The first ever decision was taken to phase down coal consumption, and any kind of inefficient fuel subsidies होगा उसको phase out करना है, and coal, oil, CNG के लिए जो भी subsidy मिलेगा उसको भी phase out करना है. This was all agreed. So in this context, India along with many other countries agreed on Glasgow breakthrough agenda. Okay, particularly for this, in this context of coal phase down के लिए, clean technology के लिए, they agreed on Glasgow breakthrough agenda. Okay, ज़्यादा डिटेल में लिखने का जरूरी नहीं है, just have to write this Glasgow breakthrough agenda. Basically, it is an initiative to accelerate the development of clean technology. Okay, initiative to accelerate the development of clean technology, that was agreed. Glasgow breakthrough agenda. And along with that, many of the countries also pledged to reduce the emission of methane. Okay, more than 100 countries agreed to cut down the emission of methane by 30%, and in this India, China, Russia did not commit anything. Okay, India has not committed anything on methane reduction. And in the context of finance, it was clearly visible that most of the countries missed their target to achieve the climate finance. Okay, that overall target was 100 billion per year by 2020. That was clearly missed, and all the countries agreed to increase their commitments in terms of the money supply to switch to clean technology. वहाँ पर थोड़ा बहुत पैसा देना है and next year से थोड़ा बहुत increase करना है, ऐसे overall बातें हुआ था. But ऐसे specific commitments तो नहीं दिया है in the context of finance. And even in the context of deforestation, there was an agreement. In the context of deforestation, the countries, more than 100 countries agreed to stop deforestation by 2030. 2030 तक हम deforestation खत्म कर देंगे ऐसे बोल के many of the countries have agreed, and nobody agreed on how exactly to achieve, and India again did not commit anything in this front also. And most important commitment was to achieve net zero. Okay, net zero is not about making the overall emissions zero. It is basically compensating the emissions with carbon capture. Overall emission, the overall emission and the capture should be balanced. That is what is net zero. So many of the countries agreed and declared their intention to achieve net zero by 2050, and India announced its intention to achieve this the same by 2070. Okay, more than 140 countries agreed to achieve net zero, and the major final outcome was Glasgow Climate Pact. Glasgow Climate Pact. So basically this climate pact, through this climate pact, all the countries who were the participant, 197 countries, agreed and signed this, that they will accelerate their efforts to reduce the greenhouse gas emission and to limit the global warming by 1.5 degrees Celsius. Okay? And many of the countries said that they will try to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 45% by 2030, and overall net zero they will try to achieve by 2050. Okay, that was Glasgow Climate Pact. Okay, it is about the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. They said 2030 तक 45% कम करेंगे and 2050 तक net zero achieve करेंगे. Okay, most of the countries signed this. And another minor one, they agreed also on common time frame. Common time frame from next commitment period. Okay, so जो 2030 के बाद में जो भी commitments होगा, all the countries will try to follow a common time frame जो अभी नहीं है. So these are the major things which were the outcomes of this COP 26. Okay, you can see there are many outcomes. It is always better to highlight them individually rather than elaborate only few. Okay, rather than elaborating only few, if you can bring up multiple outcomes, that is always suggested and that is more scoring. And यहाँ पर इंडिया का कमिटमेंट तो बहुत फेमस था. वी गेव दिस पंचामृता 5 different targets as announced by our Honorable Prime Minister. What are these 5 different targets? Overall net zero by 2070, increase the non-fossil fuel capacity to 500 gigawatts by 2030, and 50% of its energy requirement from renewable energy by 2030, and reduce the total carbon emissions by 1 billion tons till 2030, and reduce the carbon intensity of its economy by 45% by 2030. These are the 5 different targets. So I hope जो भी पढ़ा था 500 याद हुआ है तो you would have got full marks. This question is one of the very scoring. Both scoring हो सकता था if you remember these outcomes specifically. So that is about environment questions, and there are 2 questions on disaster management. So let's come to these questions. So there was one 10 marker question on earthquake. Discuss about the vulnerability of India to earthquake related hazards. Give examples including salient features of major disasters caused by earthquakes in different parts of India during the last 3 decades. ठीक है. So there was in paper 3, the same paper 3 में एक question आया था 2015 में, and that was also an earthquake. So disaster management is one of the most predictable area. It is one of the most predictable area. So there are few disasters जिसके ऊपर हर साल repeat होता ही है. Okay, so those who had attended my class, they would understand. मैंने detail analysis दे दिया था. So how exactly the questions have repeated, and multiple disaster के ऊपर multiple questions have come. and उसका area भी बहुत predictable है. The question can be either on the areas impacted by that particular disaster, that is vulnerability, जहाँ पर आपको एक map लिखना है, पूरा लिख के elaborate करना है. Okay, these are the overall area हो सकता है. What are the causes of that particular disaster, which includes both natural as well as man-made causes, anthropogenic causes, and damages, impact caused by this particular disaster, and various mitigation measures required to be taken. And यहाँ पर आपको याद रखना है NDMA guidelines directly. NDMA guidelines directly याद रखो, इसके ऊपर डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन आता है, ऐसे ही लिखना है. यही एरिया होगा. एंड देर आर फ्यू डिजास्टर लाइक अराउंड 6 to 7 डिजास्टर जिसके ऊपर हर बार रिपीट होता है क्वेश्चन. दिस वन ऑफ द मोस्ट प्रेडिक्टेबल एंड वन ऑफ द मोस्ट स्कोरिंग. एंड डिजास्टर क्वेश्चंस आर नॉट ओनली लिमिटेड टू पेपर 3, दे ऑल्सो कम इन पेपर 1. पेपर 1 के अंदर भी यूजुअली एक क्वेश्चन रहता है डिजास्टर रिलेटेड. एंड दिस ईयर लकीली द क्वेश्चन वाज ऑन द सेम लैंडस्लाइड. पेपर 1 में भी लैंडस्लाइड, पेपर 3 में भी लैंडस्लाइड. जो लैंडस्लाइड अच्छे से प्रिपेयर किया था उसको तो जैकपॉट. ठीक है. So and even these 2 questions which have come in disaster management, they were also a little bit scoring, but except this earthquake wala question, few of the students would not have, whoever had not remember the previous earthquake, जिनके लिए उनके लिए थोड़ा बहुत मुश्किल हुआ होगा, but otherwise it is a scoring one. Fine. And this was the previous question which was asked in 2015. The frequency of earthquakes have appeared to have increased in the Indian subcontinent. However, India's preparedness for mitigating their impact has significant gaps. Okay, basically about the various measures required to be taken for earthquake. तो यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा different direction में क्वेश्चन आया था, तो अभी थोड़ा सा different है, but overall topic is same. So what is the overall structure for this question? Start your answer with a brief introduction of what are earthquakes. Then directly talk about India's vulnerability. Can you see the first part? Discuss about the vulnerability of India to earthquake related hazards. Okay, here you don't have to limit only to earthquake. Earthquake के वजह से दूसरा जो भी disaster हो सकता है, दूसरा hazard हो सकते हैं, उसके बारे में भी लिख सकते हो. Okay, that is the second part, India's vulnerability. Third, give examples including salient features of major disasters caused by earthquakes in different parts of India. So that is with example you have to explain how exactly the different earthquakes have happened in the past and what was the impact, उसके वजह से क्या क्या हुआ था. So very briefly you have to describe about them, the previous earthquakes which have happened, and a brief conclusion would be sufficient here. Now what are earthquakes? Earthquakes are basically the transient disturbance which we feel near to the surface due to the disturbance of elastic equilibrium which is present near to the surface. Okay, जो भी rocks के अंदर जो gravitational equilibrium रहता है ना, so that is disturbed by the release of energy and various other causes. So once the energy is released in the Earth's interior, that causes the shock wave that sends the vibrations all across near to the surface. So that is what we can call it as earthquake. India's vulnerability, definitely you can write a map and show the different zones which are vulnerable to earthquakes in India. Overall, India has 4 zones of earthquake. Okay, overall 5 zones रहता है, उसमें India में 4 zones ही है. Okay, there is zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5. India में there is no zone 1. Zone 1 is the lowest possibility, most safe. उसका मतलब है इंडिया में there is no place where there is no possibility of earthquake. हर जगह में earthquake हो ही सकता है. In India, in every place there is a possibility of earthquake. So that is why we don't have zone 1. We have zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5. Zone 5 very high risk, zone 4 high risk, zone 3 moderate, zone 2 low risk. Very high कहाँ पर है? The entire northeast, Andaman Nicobar, near to Nanda Devi, near to Dharmashala in Himachal, and the Kashmir Valley, and Bihar border along Nepal border along Bihar, and entire run of Kutch. This is what is zone 5. Okay, हमने बहुत डिटेल में डिस्कस किया था. I hope you guys remember this, our classroom students. So this is zone 5, and zone 4 is the entire rest of Himalaya and the northern plains, Ganga plain. That is entirely zone 4, and the surroundings of zone 5, wherever there is zone 5, in the surrounding you will also find zone 4, including a part of West Bengal and western Maharashtra. यहाँ पर एक fault है, तो यहाँ पर भी एक fault है. So these are majorly zone 4. And other than zone 4, zone 2 most stable ones are these plateau region, like the northern and eastern Rajasthan, northern Madhya Pradesh, and the Karnataka plateau, Telangana plateau, Vidarbha region, and all of this, we can say Jharkhand plateau, all of this. And zone 3 are majorly the river valleys, Narmada Valley, Narmada Tapi Valley, Mahanadi Valley, Godavari Valley, and Indo-Gangetic plain. ये सारा चीज़ें हमारा zone 3 में आता है. So overall, roughly you can draw a map and show the major regions, vulnerable regions. These are the regions which are prone to seismic activities. Okay, why there are seismic activity? Because the entire Indian plate is moving towards the Eurasian plate, and here it is the collision is happening between the Eurasian plate and Indian plate, that is still continuing. Okay, that makes this entire zone totally active. Along with that, India also has many active fault. Okay, faults are basically intraplate zones जहाँ पर where there is a possibility of movement. Okay, intraplate movement बोलते हैं. So where there is a continuous collision can happen, continuous release of energy can happen. India has a total of nearly 66 active faults. Okay, that makes all other regions of India, other than this boundary between the Indian and Eurasian plate, even the other regions also there is a possibility of earthquakes. Okay, one very famous fault is Allahabad fault near Bhuj, which resulted in 2001 earthquake of Bhuj. In addition to this, various other events also causes hazards which are triggered by earthquakes. For example, tsunami, landslides, floods, the collapse of hills and mountains. जैसे 2015 में Nepal earthquake had resulted in a huge landslide in Everest. In the same way, okay, it triggers various other hazards also. So you can also write about that here. In addition to all of this, the most vulnerable factor, that is which is a factor which is increasing the vulnerability, is unplanned urbanization. Okay, most of the cities, the metropolitan cities, they have grown like in an exponential manner, in a very unplanned manner, and that makes these cities more vulnerable to earthquakes. Even if there is a small earthquake, the damage will be higher because of the way they are growing, and the urban cities are growing. The settlements are planned, and the settlements are constructed in that manner without considering any kind of safety precautions. So that also makes many of the major cities more vulnerable to earthquakes. Okay, even with a lesser impact, lesser magnitude, it can cause more damage. So this is about the vulnerability. And coming to the third part, major disasters caused by earthquakes. यहाँ पर भी आप एक सिंपल सा मैप लिख के दिखा सकते हो मेजर डिजास्टर कहाँ पर हुआ था. द मोस्ट like you can say the worst disaster which India has faced in the recent 30 years. Okay, सबसे खतरनाक वाला था हमारा भुज earthquake of 2001. Bhuj earthquake of 2001 resulted in overall magnitude of 7.7, which killed nearly 20,000 people in this surrounding region. Okay, here there is a fault called as Alaban fault, and their earthquake happened, and this is one of the major earthquake which India had witnessed in the last 30 years. Okay, 7.7 is the highest one which India had witnessed on the land of India. Which resulted in nearly 20,000 people dying. So that was Bhuj earthquake. Second one is Kashmir earthquake. Kashmir earthquake happened in this part. Okay, that is actually was presently it's in POK. Kashmir earthquake, and this was 2005. 2005 में हुआ था, of the magnitude 7.6. And majorly the people who are impacted from this earthquake are those who are living in this side of Pakistan, and those people who are living in Gilgit-Baltistan, जो Pakistan occupied Kashmir है, and along with that some of the regions of our India's side of Kashmir also was impacted. Okay, this was one of the worst disaster which had happened in the South Asia in the recent times, which resulted in nearly 80,000 people dying. Okay, that was Kashmir earthquake of 2005. Since it happened in POK, definitely it should be considered as happening in India's territory only. ठीक है, इसके बारे में लिखना ही है. Third one, Sikkim earthquake. Sikkim earthquake which happened in 2011. 2011 में हुआ था. This was actually a magnitude of 6.9. 6.9 magnitude में. It happened exactly along the border between Sikkim and Nepal, that is near to the Kanchenjunga region, and that caused some amount of devastation over there, and luckily there was not much population in that region, so not much major damage occurred here. But in terms of magnitude, this is one of the highest earthquakes which happened in the recent time. And fourth one, Latur earthquake of 1993. Okay, Latur earthquake, Latur Maharashtra में है, which resulted in killing of nearly 10,000 people. Okay, nearly 10,000 people died in the earthquake, in this earthquake, and this was of the magnitude of 6.2. 6.2 magnitude का हुआ था. And basically वहाँ पर एक rift valley है, मतलब एक fault है, and along this fault the energy was released. This is the best example for intraplate plate movement. Okay, intraplate rifting and intraplate movement. So that was Latur earthquake. And fifth one, Uttarkashi earthquake. Uttarkashi earthquake of 1991. Okay, 1991 में हुआ था, of the magnitude 6.1. And again this caused huge damage because this area was totally pilgrimage site है. Nearly 1,000 people had died here. And this entire region of Uttarakhand, ये जो उत्तरकाशी, चमोली, तेरी region है, so there it caused a huge devastation. These are the major ones. Along with that, you can also talk about, of course, you have to talk about Nepal earthquake of 2015, because the question clearly says that it is not limited only to earthquakes, earthquake-related hazards. Right, major disasters caused by earthquakes in different parts of India. So this earthquake had the epicenter in Nepal. Nepal में epicenter था, but फिर भी some of the regions of surrounding UP, Bihar जो surrounding में था, they faced the tremors and few of the damage also happened over there. Okay, Nepal में बहुत खतरनाक था. In fact, it resulted in a huge avalanche in Mount Everest, one of the worst, and this happened in 2015, and the magnitude was 7.8. Okay, बहुत खतरनाक था. इंडिया के region में इसका impact कम था, but still we felt this. And of course you have to bring the 2004 earthquake which happened in Indonesia. So even though the earthquake was not directly impacted India, it resulted in the generation of huge tsunami, which caused huge havoc in India, Sri Lanka and the entire Indian Ocean का region में. It caused huge destruction and many people died here, and this was an earthquake of 9.1 magnitude, one of the highest in the entire world. ठीक है. So इसमें 4-5 तो आपको याद रहेगा, इतना लिखना तो बनता है. It is not that difficult. So if at all you had studied earthquakes in specifically, you could have remembered these few earthquakes, and a brief description would have been sufficient here. And in the conclusion, you can talk about the necessity of following the guidelines, because most of the urban cities, they don't follow the guidelines, and the unplanned urbanization and the way we are growing, that makes most of the urban cities, the major metropolitan cities, more vulnerable to earthquake. It is in this context NDMA guidelines are very much crucial. Okay, you can write about this in the conclusion. The last question, describe the various causes and effects of landslide. Mention the important components of national landslide mitigation, risk management strategy. Okay, 2019 में क्वेश्चन आया था, disaster preparedness is the first step to in any disaster management process. Explain how hazard zonation mapping will help in mitigation in the case of landslide. Okay, hazard zonation mapping is basically part of landslide risk mitigation strategy, risk management strategy. 2019 का क्वेश्चन है, a part of it is repeat, and second thing is paper 1 में लैंडस्लाइड के ऊपर डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन आया था, the comparison between Himalayan and Western Ghats. तो अगेन दूसरा in a different way they have asked here. Okay, not a difficult question because news में था, one of the most predictable one, and that makes this question scoring. In the introduction, you can talk about what are landslides. Briefly, basically it's a type of mass movement where a section of the hill starts to slide off under the influence of gravity with or without the presence of water. Okay, causes of landslide, you can talk about the causes under two heading. One is natural, another one is anthropogenic. Okay, natural causes includes volcanic eruption, earthquakes, flash floods, and changes in the topography, natural changes हो सकते हैं. So all of these are natural causes, and the increase in the steepness, young-fold mountains, heavy rainfall, ये सारा चीज़ें natural causes में include कर सकते हो. And anthropogenic causes, of course, they are the major trigger of landslides both in Himalayas as well as Western Ghats. We have discussed this in detail. So in Himalayas, they are basically due to the road construction, the construction of hydropower projects, and even the deforestation, mining, and overgrazing both in Himalayas as well as Western Ghats. So that makes the anthropogenic causes. Try to bring multiple points here. 15 mark का है, बहुत scope रहेगा, मतलब in order to elaborate here a little bit. Effects of landslide, you can talk about various multidimensional effects including the effects on the human and animal life, damage to infrastructure, roads, and even the damage to the transportation network. Roads and railways are disturbed, the communication are disturbed, it makes movement from one place to another difficult, and even the important economic activities like mining, extraction of minerals, that would be stopped. And even in many of the cases, landslides also trigger the floods, it causes flash floods, and in many of the cases it also impacts the agricultural lands, the standing crops will be devastated. ये सारा चीज़ें you can write about them in the effects. Okay, try to write as many different dimensions as possible here. And coming to National Landslide Risk Management Strategy, this is a strategy suggested by NDMA. Those who had read NDMA guidelines, they can easily write this. हमारा क्लास में भी directly cover हुआ था. And NDMA guidelines, one of the very important one, मैं बार बार बोला हूँ, even in the previous session also, even in this session also, I am going to tell. So any particular disaster, please try to remember few headings of NDMA guidelines. Landslide के अंदर there are 5-6 headings, earthquake के अंदर 5-6 heading, floods के अंदर 5-6 heading. जैसे खाली heading याद रखो, बाकी सारा आप खुद लिख सकते हो. You don't have to go into detail about NDMA guidelines. Each NDMA guideline goes for like 50-100 pages. सारा याद रखना it's impossible and ज़रूरी भी नहीं. You just have to remember 4-5 headings. वो हेडिंग याद रख दिया तो आपको डायरेक्ट मार्क्स मिल जाएगा. सो व्हाट आर द इंपॉर्टेंट कंपोनेंट्स ऑफ दिस लैंडस्लाइड रिस्क मैनेजमेंट स्ट्रेटजी ऑफ नेशनल डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी. फर्स्ट वन, लैंडस्लाइड हजार्ड जोनेशन. लैंडस्लाइड hazard zonation. So basically to mark the different regions as per the potential of it to cause the landslide, है ना, based on its overall the strength of the soil, strength of the rocks, and the possibility of increased rainfall, possibility of losing strength, ये सारा चीज़ें रख के we can analyze and mark the different regions as per the potential, and जहाँ पर ज़्यादा हाई चांसेस है उसको हाई वल्नरेबल, मीडियम वल्नरेबल, लो वल्नरेबल ऐसे क्लासीफाई कर सकते हैं. दैट इज व्हाट इज लैंडस्लाइड हजार्ड जोनेशन. Okay, that is classifying the land as per the potential of landslides. Then monitoring and early warning system. Okay, using the various technologies, using the various methods like monitoring the overall precipitation, monitoring the overall strength of the rocks. By understanding the geology of these, we can clearly monitor the possibility of landslides, and using the various wireless and real-time monitoring systems, we can issue the warning also. That is what is early warning system. In addition to this, it also includes awareness generation. Okay, that is among the community, among the local people who are living in that particular region regarding various steps which should be taken by them in order to deal with the landslides. अगर landslide हुआ तो कैसे उससे escape होना है, or even to not indulge in the activities which can trigger the landslides. Okay, that is what is awareness generation, and it also includes capacity development and training. Okay, capacity development and training, that is the people who are local level में local community होते हैं उनको in terms of training and skill development, and other components like mountain zone regulation. Okay, NDA में in the similar to the coastal zone regulation, it has also suggested mountain zone regulations and policies so that we can regulate the land use in mountain regions, and it also asks for creation of a special purpose vehicle SPV for landslide management. These are the various components of the landslide risk management strategy of NDMA. Okay, it talks about how to handle the overall risk using these different components. ठीक है, so इसका 4-5 हेडिंग याद हुआ तो भी काफी है. You can talk about this. So these are 2 questions. So let's come to the last part, the sources. Okay, there are 3 questions from environment, one on the Green Grid Initiative and WHO Global Air Quality Guidelines, and the third one COP26, and all of this, the source is directly current affairs. Okay, source is directly current affairs. For this, you can follow any of the monthly magazine compilation like Mains 365 or Vision monthly magazine, that would be sufficient. Or if you are keeping in regular touch with the newspaper, आपका खुद का notes बनाया तो भी वो भी काफ़ी है. ठीक है? So current affairs, you can clearly see that the questions were directly from current affairs, and it is very important. And but इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आपको पूरा static part छोड़ो, कोई भी background का ज़रूरत नहीं है, ऐसे मैं suggest नहीं करूँगा. So this is the current trend. Please ensure that you be updated with the current affairs, current issues. जो भी current events हो रहे हैं उसका जो major outcome है पूरा याद होना चाहिए. So along with that, try to follow the previous pattern also, like overall general issues of degradation, conservation, ये सारा issues के ऊपर भी question आता है. So वहाँ पर भी आ सकता है. So along with that, please ensure that you be totally updated with current affairs. And these 3 questions from environment are directly from current affairs. I would suggest any one particular compilation would be sufficient here. Okay, whether it is the monthly magazine or Mains 365, दोनों कोई भी काफ़ी है यहाँ पर. And when it comes to disaster management question, okay, there are 2 disaster management question. तो यहाँ पर actually there is one NCERT है. Okay, ICSE syllabus का जो एक text book है. So but that is not very updated. I would suggest you to go with any particular notes on disaster management, and those who had attended my class they would know. So the vision का भी एक comprehensive छोटा सा material है about disaster management, that would be sufficient. Okay, one particular comprehensive material would be sufficient. Along with that, current affairs. Okay, those who follow my notes, that would be sufficient. उसके साथ में थोड़ा सा current affairs update कर दिया तो आपका disaster management cover हो जाएगा. So if not, you can refer to any of the comprehensive material. One single material on disaster management would be sufficient. But remember, disaster management is one of the very scoring part. Please don't miss that. ठीक है, overall environment and disaster management, I would say one question has been difficult. Other than that, it has been predictable and scoring part. So other than this, if you have any other doubts and queries, you can write to me at this mail ID, or you can also use this Twitter link to connect with me. Fine. So I wish you all the very best. Those whoever had appeared this year, I wish you best of luck. So let's hope that I'll see you guys in interview preparation. And those who are preparing for this year 2022, please keep these things in mind जो भी हमने discuss किया था, and please strategize your preparation in this particular direction. Okay, I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
आ रही आवाज? So, good evening everyone. My name is Dr. Jasmine Walia, and I am going to be talking to you about the current UPSC 2021 mains exam, General Studies Paper 3, and in that I will be dealing with the Science and Technology portion. Now, first of all, let's talk about how many questions have been asked from Science and Tech. So, this time we have we have 3 questions which have been asked. So out of a total of 20 questions in paper 3, we have 3 questions from Science and Tech portion, and these 3 questions together, they comprise of 40 marks. So it's 40 out of 250 and 3 out of 20. If I talk to you about the generalized trend as such, like in the previous years, 20, 19, 18, or I should say since the syllabus has changed since 2013, this is the standard trend. So we have 3 questions most of the times. Sometimes it can be 4 also, right, or 2 also. So it is between this. So the range would be 2 to 4. That's the standard pattern. The kind of questions, if I have to talk about that, they are a mix of your static portion and your current affairs portion, tilting more towards the current affairs aspect. There are sometimes questions which exactly are not from that particular year where which the target year for current affairs. It can be from a few years backwards, like one of the questions which we have in this paper. But more or less, if you have an idea about the basic theory, you will be able to handle those questions. One advantage which Science and Tech offers you over other subjects is that understanding of the question, right? The first sense which we talk about when we seek the idea as to how you're supposed to appear in the mains exam is that you must understand the demand of the question. In science, that is fairly simple, fairly direct. Like, I'm sure you have seen the question papers, you've seen questions, so there are different aspects which have been asked, that analyze, critically analyze, and those things in the science portion, they are not there. The questions are fairly direct, fairly simplistic, so you will not face a problem in understanding the demand of that question. The only thing is that if you know the topic, you will be able to do it. Otherwise, you have to fabricate an answer. That's like the best case, the best situation you have to create for yourself there itself in the exam. But there is little scope of not understanding the questions. The language of the questions are simple. The topic, that's the only essence which is significant. Out of these 3 or 4 questions, most of the times there is one question from biotechnology. This is, in terms of topic, if you ask me, this is one primary area where question could be asked, and we have seen consistently from 2013. There is one question, a very generic question, but one question has been asked in biotechnology. Then, if I have to make one more prediction, we have seen questions being asked around Nobel Prizes. The Nobel Prizes which have been given, that's one important theme. So this time also we had a question on Nobel Prizes. So it makes sense for you to prepare the Nobel Prizes in science, at least for that year. The ideal thing is to prepare it for 3 to 4 years, though we see that sometimes they can go beyond that also. But at least that's the basic minimum which we should definitely be covering when we are preparing, right? Other than that, along with the basic theory portions, you have to focus on the current affairs. That's going to be one very big and significant source for answering the questions. Okay. We'll talk about the questions now one by one. We'll talk about the different aspects as to how, then you will be in a better position to understand what you wrote and what was expected. And if you have not written the exam, you're still in that stage of preparation, then of course this will give you a good sense as to what is the nature of questions and what is expected from you. We'll start with the first question in science. How is the S-400 air defense system technically superior to any other system presently available in the world? Okay, so this is a 10-mark question with 150 words limit. First thing is why and from where this question is asked. This is a direct question from the current affairs. So this air defense system, it has finally been delivered to India. The first consignment has come in November 2021. Okay, so that is the time when it was in peak news, and the exam was in the first week of January 2022. So this should give you an idea that you are supposed to keep yourself updated with the current affairs, right? A lot of people feel that, maybe 2 months before the exams or 3 months before the exam, I can leave out the current affairs. I should just maybe, be revising what has been done earlier. That is definitely what you are supposed to do. You have to revise what you did earlier, but there is at no point is there a scope for you to miss out, particularly something of this significance. So make sure till you are sitting in your exam, you are well updated with any major happenings which are there, right? If you don't have time, then maybe you can limit the number of areas you focus yourself on. But if something this big has happened, if something this big is in news, you should know that yes, there is no scope for you to miss that out, right? Because this was very close to the exam when this happened and it needed your attention so that you could answer this question, right? Now, in terms of first understanding the sense of the question. So the question says, how is the S400 air system technically superior to any other system presently available in the world, right? Now there are two words which I want you to focus on. One is how is it superior, technically superior, and the second is any other system. These are the two terms which are what you need to focus on this answer. So technically superior means you need to know about the technical properties, like what is its speed, how is it addressing its target, what is its range, things like that. You know, those technical aspects should be your focus. And the second thing is they have not given you any specification as to compare with, right? They have not told you a particular system ki acha tell me in comparison to this, that how is it superior to this. Because if that was the case, then the question becomes more specific and a little slightly more difficult also, because then it requires you to know about both these systems, right, which you may or may not know. In this case, because they have given you any system, so you have an option of you know, picking out which system you want to compare it with and how many systems you want to compare it with, right? Both the aspects you can choose, right? A lot of times in science the problem is that we do not have the complete information, right? We have, you know, a partial kind of an information, and then also we need to deliver our answer to the best of our abilities, to the best of the information which we already have. So for that, this question gives you scope. But of course, this S400 air defense system, this is something which you need to know, right? Even if you know its properties, you can create an answer. And if you know about other systems, then that will give you a further advantage, a further opportunity to get more marks, because then you can easily compare in that answer, right? Being a 150 word question, this word limit is also very important. It does not give you a scope to go into any other kind of elaborations, discussions or viewpoints or anything. Okay, it's any question which is 150 words, you will need to be very focused in terms of how you are using your words, because this is already scanty word limit, right? So it's going to be just one page write-up which you have, and you have to try and give everything which you know in that particular answer. Now, the standard pattern for questions which you are supposed to follow, that remains same everywhere in all subjects, right? You are supposed to be focusing on this pattern of introduction, body and conclusion. This is the standard idea. Whenever you are writing questions in any subject, this is the pattern you follow. Here also, in science also, you will be following this pattern, and in science it becomes slightly easier because introduction and conclusion, I've told you the nature of questions is direct. So in most cases, we'll talk specifically about the questions also. This could be about the what. Basically, what is it? What is the question about? What is the main idea? That could be your introduction, or a definition if you want to give, that could be the introduction. Like in this question, you have S400 defense system. They've asked you how is it superior. So before you go to how is it superior, you can always talk about what exactly it is. Okay, what is it? That could be your first essence. And then of course the body would be whatever mainly they have asked. Like in this case, they've asked you to talk about how it is superior. So that becomes your body. And finally the conclusion, right? The conclusion could be talking about the significance of a particular topic about which they have asked, okay? Or the conclusion could be, I find this to be a very good additional point, a very significant, I should say, value addition if you can talk about India specifically, right? If India has something to do with that technology aspect, if India has something to do with maybe a program and you know about that, then adding that in your application part or in that conclusion that, you know, maybe they've asked you the benefit of something, or if I'm talking about this question S400 and they've asked you how it is superior. So you can always conclude by saying that because of these properties which you have discussed in your body, India has participated or has got a deal with Russia to purchase these particular air defense systems. Okay, that could very well be an angle in most questions. Okay, so now let's come to the essence of our topic. We'll start with the introduction, and with that we will first understand what exactly is S400. So I've put in some words which you can use in your introduction. It's basically the complete definition of S400. It is the world's most advanced air defense system. Okay, this is its identity. This is, they have asked you in this sense only. They've asked you in the sense of their technical superiority. So first, one point about this can be it is the world's most advanced air defense system. Then it can simultaneously track and neutralize a range of incoming objects, and it is a long range surface to air missile. Okay. Now let me tell you a little bit about S400. So it is a surface to air missile. This is the first essence which you should know about it. So it is going to be on your surface, on the ground, and it has the potential of attacking anything in the air. It has the potential of attacking the aerial objects. Now, it is special because at the same time it can track and it can neutralize. Okay, it can track, that means it will find out, it will identify, it has that multimodal radar system, and it will also neutralize. Okay, it will also attack. The biggest advantage of this system is that it kind of doesn't differentiate between aircrafts or the unmanned aerial vehicles or any other aerial object. Okay, it can neutralize all of these. Why this has been in news, or why we are talking about it, or why you have a question about this is because there was this deal between India and Russia in 2018. Okay, 2018, there is a deal between India and Russia, and in this deal we have agreed that we will buy 5 of these S400 defense systems from Russia, and from those 5, the first consignment that has arrived in your November 2021. Now, with our forces having control of this, one very big advantage which they have is that they can, we'll talk about its specific credentials also, how extensive its range is, how far it can attack, how many multiple attacks it can have, right? But in the most simplistic ideas, what I want to convey here is that, see, presently what would be happening is that you have aircrafts going, and any kind of aerial attacks which are there, they would be neutralized by the aircrafts. So you have your aircraft, right? The Air Force plane is there, and that is going to neutralize any attack which is happening, right? Now, at the same time, these aircrafts are the ones, if there is a need to, you know, do any air to ground attack, that also they are supposed to be doing. Right, so it kind of makes their job difficult, right? कि उनको from air to surface attack also they have to do, and then anything which is coming from air they have to neutralize that also, and it kind of creates a greater burden on our aircrafts, right? On the different fleets which we have. So if we have this defense system in place, right, which will track also, which will neutralize also, and in itself it is very difficult to identify it, It doesn't get tracked easily. It doesn't showcase very easily. So for the enemy, it's difficult to identify it, right? So if we use this to prevent any of the aerial attacks, that means our aircrafts, they are free for the air to ground attacks. Now that job of neutralization of the other aerial bodies, that is taken away from them, and their only job is that they will be able to focus on air to ground attacks or any other kind of attack which they want to do. So that is one very big strategic advantage which these S-400 is going to provide once it comes to India, right? There are other countries which already have this, Russia as such, the manufacturer, then China has it, Turkey also has it, and now India is also going to be having it. Belarus also has this S-400 system, right? This is the basic idea. It is a long range missile. Okay, its range is very extensive. That's another positive point. The first one which we have received, we are going to place it on our western frontier, the western frontier of India, and because its range is very extensive and it can cover a very large area, when it has to, track and neutralize, it will manage our problems in the west and in the northern regions also. So both are enemy nations, you can say, or the nations which keep us on our toes, both the sides, China and Pakistan, we will be able to place this in their range. Okay, so this is very, very important for us in that sense, right? So in the introduction, you will be writing, this is just the broader understanding which I wanted to give you about the topic, but you have to just write down what S-400 is in your introduction. Okay, so introduction you can write it is the most advanced air defense system, and you can write down it is a long range air to surface to air missile, right? And if you write this much also, it is good enough. If you want to further elaborate or add a few more words and you are aware of those few more words, then this is the main theme, that it can track and neutralize a range of incoming objects. Okay, this can be the introduction which you give. Okay, now the next part is going to be its comparison with the other different systems. Okay, so this is a compilation which we have for you. So we have S-400 by Russia, then you had THAAD by USA, and Pact or the Patriot by USA again, and Iron Dome by Israel. Okay, these are the other defense, air defense systems which are available. Now, the idea for other defense systems, see there are more also, like you have the Barak missile, you have India's own missiles are also there, Akash. So other systems are also there. So whatever you know, you can pick out. The idea is that you should be focusing on their technical specifications. Okay, if you are making a comparison, if you have the information about multiple defense systems, right, then the best way to present it is through a table. This is the most ideal form of presentation whenever you are doing a comparison. So you should have the features on one side and then each of the different comparisons which you have to do, that you can place alongside it. Okay. Now it's obviously, you don't need to have 3 or 4 or 5, there is no specific number, right? It is, the more you know, the better it is, right? And any of these, when you know, you are also supposed to be knowing their exact figures, right? Giving any kind of a misinformation here, that is going to be a problem. Okay, that is something which you don't have to do, right? But if you have the information, then you can add. 3 is ideal. More than 3 you don't need. Even if you know 2 is also good enough, because it's a 150 word answer. So if you have 2 and you can give a comparison between 2 more systems along with S-400, then that is good enough. 3 is again going to be more elaborate. This is again from the idea that we also want to share the content with you. So for that I've placed 3, right? You can add any other systems which you know, or you can limit to any 2 when you are writing the answer, right? I think 2 is the best case scenario. Now the question is, we'll talk about these features also. What if I don't know any other system? Okay, S400 I have read, but maybe I don't know anything else, right? I only know the properties of S400, right? Then you can at least make the effort of writing the properties of S400. ठीक है, कि उसकी जो properties पता है आपको, right? List those and you can keep mentioning that this is an advantage over all other systems or any other system in the world, just like the open language of the question. ठीक है, you need to know the different systems, but if you don't know, then you can have this whole answer written in a point format, right? And you can talk about it. Suppose we do not know all of these on all the factors. ऐसा भी हो सकता है. You're sitting in the exam, you do not know, like you know, for THAAD maybe you know its speeds. So Pact के लिए you know that it has a low mobility, right? Iron Dome के लिए you know that it can counter airborne attacks, but it is ineffective in lower projectile missiles. ठीक है, suppose this is the special feature which you know, right? Then again a point format is a better way to answer. आप point में लिखो mobility, write about S400 and then whatever you know to compare it with, जिसके लिए जो property पता है वो लिखो उसी point में, right? But of course, because this is the essence of the question, so some idea about this you definitely need to answer, right? ऐसा नहीं करना है exam में. So there is a limit of how you want to craft your answer कि okay, I know about patriot, okay, this is patriot and तो मैं patriot लिख दूंगा, ऐसा नहीं चलेगा, right? So ये तो basic premise है, right? I'm sure you are all smart enough to understand कि at least this I should know, right? If I don't exactly know the lines of comparison, then slight tweaking is possible, but not without this, right? जैसे इसमें अब figures भी दिए हैं, right? So you should know that any of these technologies which are coming in India, which India is using, for them these numbers are important for you to learn. They can be asked in the prelims exam also, they can very well be put in your mains answer also. So this is the basic premise, this is the basic sense which you should keep it, make notes or place it with yourself, underline when you are reading current affairs, because this is all going to be in your current affairs, okay? So you need to know that these are the important numbers. With numbers there is always this confusion that which number we need to remember, which we have to forget, okay? Obviously not forget, but which we can, you know, like maybe keep it on the sidelines. So for these, any significant development, this is a very major development, this is in news. I'll conclude by telling you what is USA's problem with this also, but you will need to know all these numbers, okay? Let me just talk to you about these, the information which I have here. First point is mobility, very high, can be launched within 5 minutes, right? That launch time which is there, that is just 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes it's ready to do its job. For all the others it is low. Iron Dome ke liye it is medium, okay? Now see, we don't have numbers here, right? So if you don't have exact numbers here, then low, medium, high, those words can also be used, right? Like for Pact, I know we have around a 25-minute time duration which is needed for it to start. So this is an advantage of S400. Then applicability. Any topography up to 300 kilometers altitude. Okay, so this is all going to be on the surface only, but on the surface also it is able to go till an altitude of 30 kilometers, which is very significant considering the kind of terrain which India has to deal with when it comes to its borders, right? So For other two systems, it's mostly plain. For Iron Dome, we do not have an exact idea where it will work. Then its range. So 40 to 400 kilometers with different systems for different ranges. So it has multiple systems in which it operates. Okay, so basically there are 4 missiles, and that there is a very complex targeting system which is there, and you have a range of 40 kilometers it can target till 400 kilometers. So 400 kilometers, if you think about it, will cover a very large area. It will provide you sufficient protection wherever you are installing it, right? In this case, THAAD mein you have 150 kilometers, Pact is 100 kilometers, and Iron Dome is having an extensive range. It can travel till 600 kilometers, but there's just one kind of a system. Okay. Now the special features: capability to track radars and airborne threats up to 600 kilometers, and it is hard to detect and destroy. Now its potential to detect, its radar potential is high, but in itself, if you need to track it, if you need to identify it, that is difficult. It's hard to detect, and then because it's hard to detect, so it's hard to destroy also. Can only counter intercontinental and intermediate range missile systems. Okay, and Pact has the ability to intercept aerial targets at a range of 180 kilometers only. And the last one, Iron Dome, it can counter airborne threats but ineffective against lower projectile missiles. So it has a range to at which it will counter. So isme we've said ki any projectile, any missile which is going at a lower level, right? Its height is not that much, that cannot be countered, right? In this, the target range is 180 kilometers, and this one will, it has a specific kind of missile system which it will attack. Okay, so this, because these are different points, they do not exactly categorize anywhere, we have given them separately under special features, right? Now what was happening was that in USA wanted to sell both of these, right, to India, right? This THAAD deal was actually going on in a great way, but considering the fact that this S400 had such better properties, India decided to go with it. And there is one more point which we can add if we have to talk about the advantages in general of S400, that this was actually a very good deal economically also. We've almost got it at a price roughly which is half of what we would have got these systems from US. So it has also saved us a lot of money as compared to the other systems which we would have invested in. Okay, so this is the main essence of the answer, the main body of the answer, right? Now the conclusion part, right? Once you have given the body in the form of a presentation, in the form of a table, or in the form of the points, that will depend on how much content you have, right? You will finally come to the conclusion, and in the conclusion, the different aspects which we can have is, you can obviously mention about India. Once you've explained the system, you've explained the advantages, you can talk about this, that considering its immense advantages, India has signed a deal in 2018 with Russia, and based on that we are going to get 5 S-400 air defense systems. Okay, this is one way, and we have to further expand it. See, you can tweak it anyway. I'm just giving you some points or some ideas which could be a part of your conclusion. Then it complements with India's national air defense network. So we have our indigenous, we are developing our indigenous ballistic missile system. So this would actually be very complementary to that system. So some things which we are making on our own, some things which we, whatever we are not making, if we can get that from our own, so it will be a good comprehensive system to secure India's defense. And then, see, this question is sufficient till this point. Okay, we don't need to go beyond that. But if this was not a 150 mark question, if this was a 200 or a 250 marks question, and they have asked you specifically something about India, then there is a scope of putting this additional aspect also, because this is something which always stays in news. Since this deal has started, and since this selling of S-400 is being done by Russia, so you have USA imposing its sanction under CAATSA. So CAATSA is Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. Okay, so when Turkey bought the S-400 from Russia, so USA imposed sanctions on Turkey, right? Now, when this deal was going through, you had Donald Trump, who was the president of United States. So he was very clear. He made this official statement also that we are going to put sanctions on India. But now with the new Biden administration in place, India is trying to negotiate a better deal. They want an exemption against this act, that please don't impose sanctions on us, right? So that could also be one view in the form of an elaboration that this system is so good and we've got such a good deal that because of it, even with the possibility of sanctions which can happen under CAATSA, still India has gone through with this deal because of the immense possibilities which it brings to us, right? That could be the conclusion. Whenever you are writing the answer, please first think about the word limit and try and stay within the word limit. That is very, very, very important. Okay, we'll go to our next question now. Which is on biotechnology. So we have seen a consistency in pattern in the kind of questions when it comes to biotechnology. Let's read the question. What are the research and developmental achievements in applied biotechnology? How will these achievements help to uplift the poorer sections of the society? Now, this theme, how will it help to uplift? This has been consistent. Benefits of biotechnology, this theme, this has come up almost every year, the question. Like last time, the question was, how will biotechnology help in increasing farm incomes? And usse pehle bhi, if you go through the questions, so 18, 17, the same kind of question has been asked, right? That how will you get some benefit out of it, right? There is one particular source which I want to specifically mention, which you can use here. That is the website of Department of Biotechnology. Okay, in Ministry of Science and Tech, Department of Biotechnology, this website gives you a lot of points on the different schemes which they are trying, the different aspects which they are managing. So make sure when you are preparing biotechnology, you are definitely going through this website. For such questions also, you will get direct content on the areas in which work is going on, right? They have not asked you specifically about India in this question, right? Nevertheless, of course, when we are writing the Indian Civil Services Exam, so our approach, the easiest approach which we can take is to take the government's approach, right? So this you need to develop, prepare notes on this topic, that what are the benefits, what are the different areas, that would be the first thing which you would want to know about it. And this question can be made as generic as possible, right? If for somebody who has not elaboratively prepared this topic, if I ask you also that, okay, tell me, how do you think biotechnology can be helpful, you will give me some points randomly, right? But what makes this question important, or what makes the preparation of this question important, is that you give me examples. This is a 15 marker with 250 word limit, okay? So basic ideas all of you will have, but how you will make it specific is going to be in the examples, and that's the biggest game in this answer, right? And this is a basic theory aspect, so preparation beforehand of this topic is important. Now, when they make questions, they kind of put different terms so that they can easily confuse you. Like this time, they have given the word applied. Biotechnology is a direct part of your syllabus. It's mentioned as such. Different aspects of biotechnology you are supposed to prepare. The wondering part is, what is applied biotechnology? Why is it being put here? What is the significance? The significance is this, that biotechnology, the study is biotechnology. When you are using it in practical form, it becomes applied biotechnology, right? That's the only thing. There's nothing different or out of the way which you need to do about it to be able to handle this question. There are two parts here. First, what are the research and development achievements? ठीक है ना, तो first part तो हमें चाहिए achievements, and how will these achievements help to uplift the poorer sections of the society. So basically the second part they are asking is, what is the benefit, and benefit also to the poorer sections. So you have to think about what can be the applications for the common man, or what can be the applications which can uplift the different sections, the vulnerable sections, the poorer sections. These terms are used in that website. The Department of Biotechnology, they've used this term. Vulnerable sections, poorer sections, different communities ke liye they have addressed separately also, ST, women. So it can be a good area to directly get information for an answer like this, right? Introduction, if we have to talk about, would be the same, like I have told you. It would be about the definition, or what is it, and what do we have to find out about. Here we are talking about applied biotechnology. This is our main theme. This is how you are supposed to start the question. And this is 250 words, so it gives you a good scope. Okay, a good scope to handle different things. So first we'll talk about applied biotechnology. Now what exactly is it? If I talk about biotechnology, if I just have to define biotech, then I would say it is utilization of living organisms for products and processes which are useful to human beings. ये जो है ना, ये standard है. Products and process useful for human beings. Whenever we are talking about the word technology, this is what we are looking for. Technology is supposed to be something which is going to be helpful, for human beings. You are working on something which will benefit mankind. That's the basic idea. And bio word aa gaya, to bio means you are using living systems, living organisms. That's what you are using. And the third sense hai applied, which means practical application, right? So you are developing products and processes which can be beneficial to human beings, and utilizing human beings. You are going to be doing them along with it, because we are talking about the applied form, you are talking about its practical application. So this is how you will define applied biotechnology, and this definition is going to be your introduction. Practical utilization of living organisms and their products and processes which can be beneficial for mankind. This is the simplified and basic sense without getting confused with any term. Simple breakdown I have done for you. This is what it is, right? Now the aspect here is achievements. ठीक है, अभी next aspect की बात करते हैं, achievements. So that's going to be, you will write this answer in 2 points, 2 sections. So for both these sections, you will have to give a standard pattern. So you'll give, say, one line introduction before talking about achievements, or the achievements are, right? Then you make points, whatever achievements which you talk about, and after you have given this achievements wala part, right, the second part is that how will they help in upliftment. तो पहले आपने achievements दे दी, then in one line you write about achievements, that these achievements are going to be helpful in bringing about the upliftment. Nothing catchy or specific needs to be here, it can just be a direct line, and then you mention the achievements. Okay, I have mentioned 4, but at least 3 points are needed. ये basic minimum है. Maximum में I think you can go till whatever the word limit allows you. It will not in any case be more than 5. It's going to be the maximum points, right? But 3 तो ज़रूर चाहिए. 3 points. Whenever see you are writing points for anything, if you don't write 3 points, it makes no sense. Okay, so 3 points is basic minimum, and whenever you are giving these points, obviously the best way to do it is with a subheading. You give a subheading and then you explain that subheading. So which areas we can use, that is in terms of the content here, that is what we are going to talk about. And finally, when you've done both these things, you will conclude. So let's see our different achievements first. Now in each of these cases, we need examples. Achievements for this question are going to be around the areas, that in which areas is biotechnology doing its research and development. That's what they are asking you, that what are the achievements in different areas of research and development. So which are the areas where they are working in. So you have healthcare, you have agriculture, you have environment, you have genomic studies, you have energy sector. Okay. Now, for each of these points, you have to give them specific examples. Without that, the sense of this answer is not complete. We need examples in each of these cases. Like for healthcare, you can talk about development of vaccines. You know, some things which everybody can relate with, which is commonly known to you also. So you have the mRNA vaccine, which has been so widely discussed, right? So that is coming from living systems only. So you can mention that. Or if I just take COVID and give you examples in that, तो आप diagnostic procedures की बात कर सकते हो. Different diagnostic procedures like RT-PCR. Okay, it is a utilization of biotechnology through which this is coming, right? So you give examples. फिर agriculture की बात करें तो agriculture में achievements जो हैं, mainly it is your genetically modified crops, right? Genetically modified crops, then further you can say that they have a benefit of dealing with climate variations. तो आप उसको environment से भी connect कर सकते हो. That climate change variations which we are facing, we can prepare our plants to deal with that by having a specific variety of genetically modified plants, right? Or in different environmental conditions, or in conditions of variations in soil and water, we can still have plants which give us a higher yield. Okay, if we have to इसी को अगर हमें health care से link करना है, I can talk about biofortification, right? I can add nutrients to my crops, genetically modified crops with additional nutrient that could be there. If I talk about environment में you have the basic concept of bioremediation. Use of living organisms, use of living systems to ensure we are dealing with the environment, or we are removing waste, we are removing the pollutants. Environmental problems are twofold mainly, right? One is pollution, the second is waste management. Both of these problems can be easily dealt by using living systems, the process which is called bioremediation, right? And any example which you have, you can use that, like you have oil zapper. So oil zapper is a group of genetically modified bacteria which have been prepared to clear oil spills. The oil spills which happen, which are very damaging to our water bodies, to our aquatic life, they can properly be removed, will be cleared by the process of bioremediation, and a specific example like oil zapper we can add here. After this, genomic studies. Genomic studies means studying the gene systems, or studying on keeping a record of the different genes. Okay, so if I keep a record of all the genes of all the human beings, I can understand the different nature of diseases. That okay, somebody who has cancer, that person has or all those people who have say lung cancer, they have one specific genes which I have identified. With that, I can do a preventative test of all children to see if they have that defective gene which will cause lung cancer, right? That's a very significant achievement. Okay, if you don't want to go into this complicated example, think about the COVID virus, right? COVID is, I think, one thing which everybody understands. So the different variants, तो virus है, उसके variants हैं, right? So alpha, beta, delta, omicron, right? All these variants have come up. How do we know these variants are there? Because we are studying the genome of the virus. We are doing genomic studies on the virus. That's how we know. We are studying ki acha, what are the different kinds of genes, what is the genetic material of the virus, and we see a variation, and that's how we know. And then we can further go on to study the properties, right? That can be the advantage of this pattern. And then of course energy mein, the energy utilization, you have examples of biofuels here. Sorry. Okay, biofuels, bioethanol, biodiesel, all of them are using biological resources, along with that specific microorganisms which can be created to give us efficient fuels, the biofuels, right? So broad areas, you mention these areas as headings, and then you talk about a specific application in each of these cases, right? If you can think of more areas, you can add your own areas also with your own examples. That scope is always there. Now dealing with the second part of our answer, the upliftment part. Achievements की हमने बात कर ली, that we know that okay, there are different achievements which have happened in applied biotechnology. Now how are they going to uplift the poorer sections? Okay, then improved farm incomes, right? In this we can talk about specific examples of GM crops. India mein there is only one GM crop which is allowed for production. You have only one commercially allowed crop, BT cotton, and the productivity of BT cotton is very high as compared to the original cotton variety which was being grown, right? Of course there are a lot of problems also, right? There are aspects where there are multiple issues also which have come up because of this, but इस question में उसका scope नहीं है. Then you will not go on that tangent. In this question it has just asked you about the positive sides. So it has definitely increased the farm incomes, right? The crops which we are producing, the genetically modified crops, they are supposed to have a higher productivity. They are supposed to give pest resistance. They are supposed to have an increased shelf life also. Okay, so because of a lot of desirable properties, we have increasing of farm incomes. And if we talk about a country like India, we do not definitely have a very large population depending on agriculture. So any impetus which we can give to these farmers, some of who are very poor, have very small land holdings, so that would be very, very significant in terms of the impact it will have. Then affordable healthcare, okay, like vaccine production. So India is doing a lot of its vaccine production, and not just vaccine, a lot of medicines also. In our pharma industry also, we have a lot of biopharmaceuticals. So when we use these technologies on a wider scale, and we are going to be able to provide affordable healthcare to our people. Okay, affordable healthcare, and once you have given somebody affordable healthcare, that would mean that you have equipped that person to be able to, handle the different ascents of the society better. That person will be healthier, less prone to disease, so better equipped to deal with the different challenges of the society. Then, of course, employment creation. Any kind of industrial boost which is there, it is going to be going to manifest in terms of employment creation. If you have more research in this, if you have different sectors being linked to biotechnology, that would definitely mean an employment creation, right? New areas, new aspects development, new opportunities of employment, and of course then upliftment of the poorer sections who might be struggling with the idea of unemployment. That might be one reason why they are continue to be poor. Of course, energy security, right? See, local solutions can be created. Like if you talk about production of biofuels, you can one way of acquiring energy is to get a fuel from outside, right? You're spending a lot of money in that, right? Your import bills are high because of that. If you can substitute that, the government is very aggressively trying to do it, right? Trying to do blending with biofuels of your conventional fuels. So if we can do that even in a little amount, then we will be able to get a situation of energy security. And when we are energy secure, when we are energy sufficient, we will be able to provide this energy to more number of people. And the poorer sections, if they have access to energy, if suppose there is a biofuel plant which is locally there in maybe a village or any such place, then that means access to energy also opens up more opportunities for them. Again, taking us towards upliftment. Of course, last point, waste management. There's this very commonly mentioned aspect in news. So we have the idea of waste to energy. So this can be linked to it, and locally also, if we are talking about waste management in the sectors, particularly where the poorest people live, if their waste is handled properly, managed properly, and it becomes a source of income for them, right? When your waste is giving you energy, that means it's income. It is upliftment. Along with it, it is also an asset to your health. Less waste would mean less problems which are coming from waste, be it in the form of pollution, be it the form of diseases which are coming up. So all of this in that sense would be linked, right? So broadly, these are the ideas. You can interconnect them, you can think of more ideas, but the sense should be with upliftment of the poor. So achievements first with the examples, and then you have the specific ideas of how it will lead to upliftment, right? 250 words question, finally ending with a conclusion. The conclusion here could be on different aspects. One can be talking about equitable distribution of benefits. Now this is an idea which we can talk about. We've spoken about the benefits, right? So we can summarize both the parts, benefits and upliftment ko we can summarize, you can link them, and you can say that we are aware of so many benefits, so many possibilities, so many achievements of biotechnology, applied biotechnology have been there, but in order to get the maximum benefit from it, we need to make sure that these benefits are shared equitably so that we can uplift our poorer sections, uplift the poorer sections of the society, right? That kind of an interconnection will beautifully fit in this answer, right? If you have to take a slightly different mode, right, because this is a longer question, you can have some scope here, so you can talk about challenges also, but very briefly that we know about the achievements. It can convert into a lot of benefits, but we have to responsibly explore it because of the number of economic, environmental or health related challenges which could come in our way. So a responsible use to translate it into a benefit could be there. Okay, that can be another idea. And of course the aspect of India's stand, right, that how India recognizes it, and India has schemes particularly to focus on the vulnerable sections and link them to biotechnology. You can also mention that we have a separate department of biotechnology just because we recognize how important it is for a growing country like India, right? So that kind of a conclusion you can also give. Okay, see these kind of questions, they are simple, you will always be knowing them, but with examples, with a little bit more, you can say technicality, you can really explore the scope of getting more marks in a question like this. It's a very standard question which we have seen repeatedly here, right? Let's come to the last question. This was slightly a curveball, I think, for most people. Now we'll see how we are supposed to handle a question like this. So the Nobel Prize in Physics of 2014. So after people get demotivated after reading 2014, कि 2022 में why have you asked 2014 का question? And when you start feeling this is injustice, this is not fair, I have studied so much, you can't ask me this, right? But again, you have to be creative, right? That's your point. And you know things, you know aspects. Just make it a point that anything which is off track from what you are expecting does not mean that you will not be able to do well in that, right? If the kind of mindset with which we attempt our exam, with which we take on the exam, that is also very, very significant. You need to have that composure. You have to read every word, every line to make sure that you give in your best. And there will always be things in different sections which you will not know, which you will not have heard, or for which you have to be slightly creative. Okay, so this was one of the questions, right? Now they've mentioned the names also. The Nobel Prize in Physics was jointly awarded to Akasaki, Amano, Nakamura for the invention of blue LEDs in the 90s. How has this invention impacted everyday life of human beings? Okay, so this first line is just a basic introductory line, and it has only been given to scare most of the people. The question is, the main question here is, how has the invention of blue LED impacted everyday life of human beings? ठीक है, ये question है सिर्फ. See, if the question was just this, how has the invention of blue LEDs impacted everyday life of human beings, people would not have been this scared. But because you have these Japanese people being named, and then 2014 written, then Nobel Prize, you start thinking that yaar ye to bahut specific question they have asked. But it's usually not like that, right? So break down the questions, have confidence in whatever you have prepared. LEDs are a very basic concept. Most of you might be aware of it. I guess many of you would be having LEDs in your homes also. You have it in your cell phones. So we are aware. This is not something strange out of the box or something randomly new they have asked, right? But they frame the question in a way that a moderately difficult question tends to be a severely difficult question, right? So make sure you don't fall into the trap with which UPSC is teasing you, right? Let's first understand what exactly this is through our introduction. What is the scope of our introduction? Let's see. See, if we write that the Nobel Prize was awarded to this person in 2014, तो उसमें क्या है कि वो already दिया है. The question already has this line. The Nobel Prize in Physics of 2014 people for invention of blue LEDs, this they have already given, right? So of course you will place this, you will have to write this, you will have to mention this, but again that's like nothing new you've added. And this question is 250 marks, 250 words, 15 marks question. So maybe something we can add here, something we can put in slightly here in our introduction. Isamu Akasaki, Hiroshima Amano, Shuji Nakamura, they won the Nobel Prize in 2014. Then bright blue light beams produced from their semiconductors. Now LEDs के बारे में पहले बात करते हैं little bit. So how are LEDs working? LED is the light emitting diode. So they are diodes. There are you can say devices which are going to be producing light. They are made up of semiconductors, special substances which are called semiconductors. That's what makes up the light emitting diodes. Now what was happening in the world is we had red LEDs, we had green LEDs, and they were kind of used separately, so they were monochromatic. You can use the word monochromatic for them. That means giving one colored light. To be able to become a light source, we usually prefer the white light, right? Your tube lights which are there, they are the white colored. The light which is emitted from them, that is the white light. So in order to get the white light, what was needed was that along with these two, we needed a blue LED. Because these are the three primary colors, red, green and blue, and together if we join them, we can get the white light. Okay, so we needed three monochromatic lines so that they are joined together and we get the white light, so that this technology can properly be used as a source of illumination. Now, for 50 years before blue LED came into being, this was already known, and different people, different scientists, they were trying out how to make blue LED. Okay, finally this was made. Okay, and because it revolutionized the whole system, that we finally could have this source to give us white light, recognizing this important development, a Nobel Prize was given. There was a lot of discussion when this happened, that is this development sufficient to win the Nobel Prize? It was revolutionary in the sense, the essence of the idea of giving Nobel Prizes is to give it to products or things which are going to make human life better, right? The basic idea of technology, and that's what the Nobel Committee also wants to acknowledge. So in that way, development of this blue LED meant that we could now join these three and produce white light. That is the biggest point of significance, which is then changing into different modes of application of this technology. Okay, so let's come back to what other things we can put in here. So fundamental transformation of lightning technology, white light could be now created, and red and green diodes were already there. Okay, the same things which I have introduced, right? Now what you can do is you can maybe have the introduction just talking about the Nobel Prize, and then you can slightly use the next paragraph to talk about this. That you already had the red and green diodes, and with the creation of the blue light emitting diode, you could now create white light, which has fundamentally transformed the lightning technology. Just to give emphasis on this achievement which has come about. Okay. Now, going on further, we talk about the main aspects, which is the impact. Okay. The question is just asking you how it has impacted our everyday life, right? But before you come to this, it is important that you talk about the development. Red light, green light and blue light finally giving us white light, right? This description is needed so that you get a proper linkage to this, right? And then with the coming of blue light, you will talk about how it is going to be helpful, right? Suppose you did not know about blue LED, you did not know about red, you did not know about green, right? But you know about LED and the light benefits which LED gives, right? For a lot of people, this would have been the story, right? Or maybe further also, if we encounter such questions where we do not know the specification, लेकिन आपको LED के बारे में at least पता है. You know what an LED does, you know what are its uses, you know what are its application. Then at least we can write that, right? In this question, it's actually the blue LED translating into the white light, whose benefits we have to, whose impact we have to actually explain. क्योंकि the main idea is कि blue से हमने white light बना लिया. This is our achievement, and we have to ultimately see how this will be impacting or what are its benefits. ठीक है? So if you cannot, or if you are not aware of something, but at least you know कि white LED जो normal LED, what benefits it can have, make it a point that you write them down, right? This is very important. You need to learn the art of, deconstructing, breaking your questions, and of course presenting with the content, the basic content which you have, right? LEDs is what we are talking about, the creation of white light, right? And we'll see what are its different impacts. First of all, and the most significant point is that it is very, very efficient. When I say efficient, it means that it uses less energy, gives more energy, right? That's how we calibrate efficiency. So efficient production of white light. And because it is efficiently producing white light, its biggest implementation or its biggest way in which it impacts everyday life is in illumination. Okay, the LED bulbs or tubes or whatever which we are using, that kind of an illumination is its biggest benefit, right? If you have specific figures, you can also give its comparison with the different sources. That okay, incandescent light jo hai basic, or fluorescent light which was being used earlier, from that how much more efficient it is, right? If you want to give that comparison, that is there, but because they have just asked you its impact, so even if you don't go into that range, then also it is sufficiently okay, right? Now, energy production of white light is there, and it is done efficiently. So with that, you can also connect it to the fact that how, when you are talking about an era where we are discussing energy insecurity, right? We are talking about energy insecurity. We're talking about the burden on renewable resources. We're talking about how expensive getting us to these different sources of energy is, right? So one way of tackling this could be to save energy, right? Like the basic idea which they say, saving money saved is like money earned. So if we are saving energy by use of efficient devices, we are actually gaining energy. We are lessening the burden of energy insecurity which we have. Along with it, if you think about the use of renewable resources, right? If we are now using less energy, that also means that we are using less renewable resources. Less pressure on burning of those renewable resources would also mean less carbon emission, right? You can link the idea as far as you want. It's all connected. Okay? You are wasting less energy or you're using less energy, that means you are having less carbon emissions, less damage to the environment ultimately with this energy efficient fuel. Along with, at the same time, you're dealing with the idea of energy insecurity. So energy insecurity तो है ही है, साथ में environmental impact also can be something which you can add, right? Next point. Now this is something very interesting and very, very important. Off-grid usage to solar energy. Okay. Now think of different pockets. Let's talk about India as example only. Different pockets, different inaccessible areas in India where it is not possible to integrate those areas with the mainline grid. Okay, so you need a source which could produce energy in the off-grid manner, away from the grid, some localized basic source production of electricity you want to do, right? The easiest way to do that in a country, tropical country like India, is through solar energy, right? But many times this energy production is not sufficient, especially if it is not linked to a main technical grid. So you need sources of electricity which are going to use less energy. आप locally energy produce कर रहे हो, आप solar energy से produce कर रहे हो. अब solar energy lightning के लिए, when it has to deal with different forms of bulbs or illumination devices, so LED, because it takes very less power, is a very good option. So off-grid integration के लिए our first choice, and we have a lot of government schemes also going on this idea that they're going to be talking about LEDs and their utilization. Okay, to provide connectivity to the widest interior regions and to all the extremities of India and everywhere where you cannot have the direct line being connected. Then, of course, our application in everyday life, in our digital devices, all your digital devices, they are using these LEDs now, your cell phones, your tablets, computers, television, all of this has the use of LED, right? The interactions which you are having in all these smart devices, they are going to be because of LED. We have the latest one, organic LED, or as it is said, OLED, right? You might have heard about this. So this organic LED, it's now made up of substances which are foldable. It can be given any shape. They have this potential. When they're made up of these organic materials, so they can be modulated in any shape, which is creating a very big revolution in wearable devices. Okay, your whatever devices you are wearing, right from your watch to your earphones or things like that. Even the television, they have a curved television which is actually an OLED, right? That is the organic pattern with newer materials. LED can go into a further revolution we should expect in this kind of application in digital devices. And of course the last point here is going to be in wireless communication. Like you have the Wi-Fi which is there, right? We can also utilize the Li-Fi. So Li-Fi is the optical wireless communication. Okay, we are going to have this wireless communication with the help of light technology, and this is going to be using the LEDs. Okay, and once it is using LEDs, its speed is going to be many times more because it's going to be using the speed of light, right? And that is also again a potential very big impact which we can have in our everyday life in terms of the kind of internet speeds which we will be able to provide if we are using Li-Fi. Okay, so some areas of impact, you can create more subsections, give more points, right? But this is the main essence of your answer. So your points should be constructive, your areas should be different. It shouldn't be that, you know, in 5 points which you are mentioning, you are talking about energy efficiency only, right? That kind of limits the scope of your answer, right? At least 3, and this answer, because there are no other parts, so basic I think at least 4 points, right? You can add more points in terms of the environment also, and energy insecurity. 2 more points also you can make from here if you want, but yeah, at least 3 or 4 points should be there, right? There are more ideas also of healthcare benefits, healthcare devices, diagnostic devices. Even we are trying to use LEDs for basic aspects of infection control, right? The sanitization process, for that also LEDs would be used. So that is also one more aspect which can be added here. Now, in terms of concluding this answer, again the same ideas which we have discussed in our other answers. India's point is definitely one aspect which can give an additional impetus to your answer. You can always conclude by the growing need of energy we have and how this can add to energy security. Of course, if you have already given that as one of the impacts, you can leave it out there. If you have not done that, then you can maybe conclude this, as this is a very significant point for the world to talk about energy efficient devices and tackling our problem of energy insecurity. Okay, that is one way to conclude. If you know about India's specific projects, that can be an additional extra special point which you can add. So in India's stands, I have mentioned 2 schemes which are talking about distribution and use of LEDs, which the government is going to be supporting. One is the Ujala scheme, Unnat Jyoti by affordable LEDs for all, and the Street Light National Program, which is also going to be using LEDs for street lighting, right? So on this note, we've come to the end of our 3 questions, right? Questions can be 3 or 4, right? Again, I'll summarize that questions are going to be easier for you to understand if you've read the topic. Try and take the questions on their merit, word by word. Try to see what you know and put in the maximum amount of information which you have in the answer, of course staying within the word limit, and really focus on your current affairs. You need to have your basic theory. The basic theory, when I say, that means every word which is given in your syllabus, you have to prepare that in detail, right? That is one sense, right? If it is robotics, nanotechnology, whatever they have written, you need to prepare different aspects of those things in detail, right? Of course, go through your previous year's questions because they give you a good understanding as to what is the range in which they are going to be asking you questions. At the same time, make sure you keep yourselves very updated with your current affairs. Okay, current affairs till the time you write your exam, very important. And for science, that's going to be a very, very significant source both for your prelims and for your mains also, right? So enrichment of answers is going to come from those examples, for which also you need current affairs, and of course the direct source of questions can also be your current affairs, right? On that note, I wish you all the best. Thank you and good night everyone.